Good morning, my friends. Today it's a cloudy day. Um, Looks like it's about to rain, and there's some water on the street, but it doesn't look like it's raining right now. So I'll have to check up on that later on, see if there's rain. I have work later today, so hopefully I don't have to walk in that shit, but we will see. So today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of a controversial subject that's happening right now in the world, and this is the subject of incels. For those of you who don't know, most people should know what an incel is. An incel is an acronym. It's not an acronym. It's a shortened version in terms of what it means is involuntarily celibate. It's a group of particularly men who believe that they live in a system and society where they are basically shunned out and believe that they cannot have sex or be intimate with any woman, mostly because of the state of how the world is right now, socially, politically, whatever. I have to say it's a very fascinating subject to get into. They're predominantly very misogynist, if you can't already tell. So it's a movement that's based off of a lot of self-hatred, which I think people don't understand as much when they're looking at them or trying to understand who they are. They think it's a very outward hatred towards women, which in fact it is a lot of the times, but most of it is self-inflicting. A lot of these incels are very hateful towards themselves. They generally dislike themselves. They have no sense of self-love, right? And I think that's a big part of what the root of this issue is that they just don't have any self-respect. And in terms of that, they don't get respect from other people, particularly women. So it goes to show that this notion of self-love is a very important aspect, because if you don't love yourself, you're going to end up not loving other people. If you hate yourself, you're going to hate other people. And this is the notion I see with a lot, not just incels, but with a lot of people in various different political groups, social groups, religious groups. It's a lot of self-hatred. You look at the Catholic religion and why the Crusades happened. It had a lot to do with how much they hated themselves. Literally, you have like a lot of guilt that comes with this religion in terms of sinning, and you have to confess your sins. It's a lot of self-hatred. It's a lot of, please forgive me, God. I hate myself. I'm beneath you. I'm lower than you. That self-hatred is going to project out into other aspects. You're going to start hating other people that are different than you, particularly people who are happier than you, right? That's the big thing with incels is the chads, right? The chads who get all the women, and they profess their hatred towards the women who follow them, and the hatred towards the chads as well. And it's ironic because a lot of these so-called incels, they like to talk a lot about, that's because of their looks. It's about the way, how tall they are, their jawline, all kinds of different factors. And in fact, a lot of them are they're not like excruciatingly ugly. Like there's obviously some of them that are, but there's a lot of them that are generally pretty attractive in terms of like the physical look. And I think that's an indicator that in terms of being attractive towards women, it's not about looks in general, right? I mean, it's like visually it might play into a factor, but most of it comes from your ability to be confident in yourself. I feel like that's the biggest thing, and a lot of them frown upon that kind of thing. Like they make fun of people who give them the advice to be confident in yourself, and they don't want to hold on to that idea because it just feels so easy. And it really is. A lot of this stuff is pretty easy if you just learn to be confident in yourself, right? Um, you know, when I was a kid and I was in high school, I did not get laid at all. I lost my virginity when I was 20, and you know, I had a friend of mine who was 5'3", right? I'm 6'2". Generally, people think that's a privilege in the dating world, but if you don't have self-confidence, self-confidence is the root. It's the structure of everything, right? So I had this friend. I had a couple friends actually who were pretty. They were pretty short. But they had that confidence in themselves. They just didn't give a shit about if they were short or not. They're 5'3". I mean, that's not just like below average. That's like pretty short. And they got all kinds of women. They had sex like all the time. And that's an indicator that all this stuff about how it's all about looks, it's all about height, it's really irrelevant. It's all about your confidence level, right? So, and I think that this goes into a lot of facts about men in particular. Men, on average, are more suicidal. They're more prone to kill themselves because they don't live in an environment where they're comfortable with being confident in themselves. It's a very destructive culture in terms of masculinity. And I think there's a counter to that, which is also equally as toxic. It's like anti-masculinity. Get rid of anything that's masculine. And I don't think either of those two things, this macho bullshit way of being a man where it's all about how strong you are and how you can dominate other people, is not productive at all. And then there's the other side of it where anything that's inherently masculine and any sort of type of masculine confidence is a negative aspect, is also a toxic mentality. And you have these two polarizing effects that are kind of destructive towards what it means to be a man. Right now there's a resurgence in feminine studies. There's plenty of classes you could take about being a woman, learning about what it's like to be a woman. There's plenty of texts about it, and of course there's obviously a lot of texts about men, but it's not the concept of what it means to be a real man, what it means to embrace the real notion of masculinity, what it really is. It's all about like historically what men have done, which generally is not very good because we lived in an imbalanced society where men were dominant and women were subordinates. And right now we need to strike that balance between toxic masculinity or no masculinity whatsoever, which are both very divisive lines. And I think this incel thing is a reaction to these two forces that are kind of fighting it out right at the moment. This incel is just a reflection of that kind of toxic mentality, and people wonder, like, where are these incels coming from? Why are there incels that exist? And there needs to be a sense that anything that you feel like is evil is being created for a reason, right? This incel thing didn't just happen by accident. It's happened because of both the fact of toxic masculinity and the toxic anti-masculinity that's going on in the world. So I think if we need to sort of rectify the situation, and I think also the aspect of isolation and the internet has not helped at all. But those are different factors altogether. But I think if we're looking to alleviate this problem, most of it has to come from the fact that we need, as men, to really self-reflect upon ourselves and really find a way to become healthy and happy with ourselves in a way that's not destructive. I don't think there's any man out there who is a rapist or destructive that's happy with themselves. I think they're they hate themselves a lot of the time. They have a lot of problems with themselves. I think that's evident. You see a lot of aggressive men who take advantage of women. They're not happy people. They're generally pretty miserable, and they're pretty angry and uptight all the time, which is why they feel the need to act out on that. And I feel like there needs to be a resurgence of male confidence in themselves, like a man loving himself as to who he is, and that's going to alleviate these symptoms of abuse in the world and this symptom of self-hatred. And I think that's going to be the first step in terms of fixing this is just simply to start understanding what masculinity is and how we can work with it and not make it into this destructive, toxic aspect of society or whatever you want to call it. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I hope you have a wonderful day.